In 4 years, somebody's going to be running. Could be JD. It could be this one. By the way, he's doing a good job.
The best.
He's doing a good job, but it could be JD, and he'll have competition no matter what. But when you have a rally, they're going to have 250 or 300 people. If Ronald Reagan came back from the dead, at the height of Ronald Reagan, if he went to California to have a rally, he'd have 250, 300 people in a ballroom someplace. We have 50, 60, 70, 80, 100,000 people. And in all fairness, we're late. I don't know. I have no idea. I've been doing this all day. I have no idea what time it is. But I know it's not exactly prime time for doing this stuff. All of the things that can happen. The one thing, and I had a professor at the Wharton School of Finance, but we had history classes also. He said, the one thing you never want to happen is you never want Russia and China uniting. We united them because of the oil. We united them. Biden united them. It's a shame. The stupidity of what they've done. Well, I'm going to have to ununite them, and I think I can do that too. I have to ununite them. But early on, I've read, and you've learned, you never want Russia and China, and they're natural enemies because Russia has massive land and China needs it. Okay? They need that land. China doesn't have the land for the population. Russia has, if you ever look at the size of the Russian landmass, it's like 4 times or 5 times. Doesn't it have like 12 time zones or something? It's massive. They're a natural enemy, and we've allowed them to get together. It's such a dangerous thing. Another thing that we're doing is we're losing the dollar as the standard because of these people that are so, if we lose the dollar as the standard, that's like losing a war, and it'll never happen with me. There's no way that will happen with me. We got to put it back together. We cannot. That is like losing a war. Then, go a couple of years forward or go now. And I don't blame him for sticking with his daughter, but his daughter is a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. When the guns are trained on her face. They're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy. But she's a stupid person. And I'd have meetings with a lot of people, and she always wanted to go to war with people. So whether it's her, whether it's Dick, I was surprised a little bit with Dick Cheney. I didn't know him at all. I only had essentially the 1 or 2 phone calls, and it was only a call saying, thank you very much for doing that for Scooter Libby. That was nice. And Scooter Libby, by the way, was beyond, he couldn't believe that it happened. Nobody would do it. They should have done that for him years before. But I was a little surprised because I actually thought that Dick Cheney would go with me over his daughter, and he didn't. And you know what? I understand it. It's your daughter, and you go. But she's a bad person. One other thing, they had the J6 committee, and I say this for the fake news back there. They learned a lot of phony things like that. I took on when I was in the car, take me to the Capitol, I said, according to this young lady. And then they said, sure, we won't do that. Well, number one, if I said it, they do it. But I had 2 people, Secret Service guys, both extremely rough guys. One was like a karate champion, one was a weightlifter. She said, I grabbed the one by the neck, and when I was rebuffed, I went over to the other one, and I grabbed him in a chokehold or something. And actually, no, but how ridiculous, okay? It's just not my thing. You would know. Hey, we can be tough, but it's not my thing. I wouldn't do it. I said, actually, can we go down to the Capitol? They said, sir, it's better if we don't. This was before anyone knew there was a problem, because there's a lot of people and it's going to be tough. Probably not. And we had more people than I've ever seen up at the ellipse, up on top. And a small group went down to the Capitol. But I said, can you take? They said, sir, it's really a little bit tough. I said, that's okay. Whatever you think is. She had me grabbing the one around the neck and being rebuffed. And then I grabbed the other one. And I know them both very well. Bobby. I know Bobby wins, Bobby. And they're good. And they're good guys, too, but they're tough guys. I think they probably could have rebuffed me. I'm a little bit older. But friends of mine love the story. They said, leave the story. You sound like the toughest dude around.
So you've expanded and changed the Republican Party. And one of the amazing things that I have learned is that Republican voters really care about issues I didn't realize they cared about, like clean air, clean soil, clean food. You've won, somehow, the full-throated endorsement of Bobby Kennedy, lifelong Democrat, who's now like a full-time surrogate for you.
He's a very, very good man, too, by the way.
So what's that going to look like after you get elected?
Well, I feel interesting about this kind of stuff. I like to, number one, get elected. I hate to talk this stuff. A lot of people, they set up, I know that even when I ran, Hillary had an office set up where they were interviewing all the, I don't want to do that. I want to get elected first, and then we'll cram a little bit. But, I don't like doing it. No, I remember she set up this big office. They're interviewing people for jobs. And actually, you're supposed to do it. But I want to win. I want to win in 5 days from now. It's almost 4 days from now, right? In 5 days from now, when we have a victory, we're going to have the best people. Here's the one difference, one big difference between now and 2016. I know Washington and the people through testing, real testing, better than probably any human being that's ever hired people. So I went from not knowing anybody and having to rely on, in all fairness, Mike Pence and many other people. I had Mike Pence, and I had others, and they would recommend people. Sloppy Chris Christie recommended some people. And I wouldn't have used him had I known. But you rely on people. You pick people, and sometimes they disappoint you. Everybody knows that. And then you pick people, and sometimes they turn out to be better than you thought. But for the most part, I tell you what, I think we have some incredible people in Washington. We really do. We have some great people, and I now know, I believe, for the most part, I know who those people are. So with Elon, here's a theory, and he's right, that there's unbelievable waste and fraud. Like, I saved much more than $1 billion when I came into the White House in one day when I said I'm not going to pay that much to Boeing for Air Force One. And they ended up taking much more than $1 billion off the price. It took about a couple of weeks, saying I'm not buying it. No, I don't want it. But there's a plane that you're saving much more than $1 billion. And you've got thousands of things like that. Not as much, and in some cases much more. They're building an aircraft carrier, the Gerald Ford. The thing came in at $20 billion for a boat, $20 billion. And it doesn't work because they decided to use electric catapults that throws the planes off instead of steam. They decided to go electric. Why are they people that going all electric? By the way, I'd end the electric mandate on cars day one. You should have electric, but you got to have gasoline. You got to have everything. That'll come off on day one. Many things will be done on day one. Your head will spin when you see what's going to happen, the stupidity. But what I like about Elon, Elon's a great cost cutter. And Elon thinks he can cut the costs of our government by $2 trillion. Think of it. That's the entire deficit, because it's now at a level. By the way, we have the biggest deficit we've ever had under this stupid group of people. But he thinks he can cut $2 trillion without affecting anybody, just through, and I think he can do that. I do. I believe that. And that's really what he wants to do. He doesn't want to work. He doesn't want to become a secretary of something. I mean, I'd love to have him, to be honest with you. But he doesn't want to. He's doing a couple of other things, you know, like rocket ships. You know, Tucker, he sends 92% of the rockets that go up are his rockets. Think of that. Russia, China, and us, 92% are him. And he's the only one. I asked him, I said, are you the only one that can do that? He's the only one that can land it like that. And he said it'll be years before they can do it. He's a great guy. He wants to cut costs. That's what he wants to do. He wants to save the country. He said that if Trump doesn't get elected, the country is finished because, you know, he understands me. And I understand. I got to know him a little bit in the White House, but much more so over the last few months. He endorsed me. He gave me an endorsement that was so beautiful. He said, if Trump doesn't win, I think this country is finished. He's worried about the country. He's worried about it. He thinks he can save $2 trillion, in which case we don't have a deficit. I mean, the whole thing would be $2 trillion a year, by the way, a year. And I will definitely, now, Bobby is great. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about with Bobby, so I want him to work on health, and I think there's nobody like him. I mean, I think he's right with so much of the things he's talking about, because, you know, we're not a healthy country. If you look at some of the countries in Europe, they're much more healthy than us. We're a rich country. I mean, you know, we got to get rid of a little debt, but that's okay. I've typically been very good at that. I've been very proficient at that. I've had it both ways. I've had a lot of debt, and I've had very little debt. And as you get older, having very little debt is much better, believe me. But you know what? He really wants to, with the pesticides and the, you know, all the different things. I said he can do it. He can do anything he wants. He wants to look at the vaccines. He wants everything. I think it's great. I think it's great. The only thing I say to Bobby is, leave the liquid gold under our feet alone. We want to have a little gasoline. Because you know what I'm going to do? We're going to unleash much of that. And we're going to, you know, Germany tried to go all green and they almost destroyed their country. And that was the end of Angela, by the way. That was it for Angela. They went all green. They had windmills all over the place. And the wind stopped blowing for a couple of weeks. And that was almost the end of Germany, actually. But the only thing, and I say it jokingly, but I say, Bobby, I love you looking at health. I want you to take care of the women of this country, the men of this country, and the children of this country. You don't have to worry about anybody else. But the one thing you got to do for me, Bobby, is leave what's under my feet, the oil and gas. You leave that to me, Bobby, because we're gonna make so much damn money, and it's clean.
Times of India videos, your daily dose of India and the world. Global news, different views, and sharp analysis.
Pressure of expectation from your fans, your supporters.
That is often served as a backdrop for several Bollywood.
You're not a brute majority anymore. If you individually take out Tehran.
Making sense of global conflicts. Tracking the new emerging world order.
Strike on Israeli military bases.
A multi-pronged.
To stay out of harm's way as Israel started bombing targets across.
Understanding changing alliances in a polarized world. Tune into TOI videos for all this and more. Click on the bell icon to subscribe and never miss an update.